Hi folks, thanks for joining us. I think you'll find that you're able to put your headsets on now and hopefully you should hear my mellifluous tones. Confirming you can hear me. Tremendous, wonderful. Is everybody having a good time? Lots of thumbs up, fantastic. Thank you for joining us at 4:25 in the afternoon. Hope everybody's having a good time at the summits. Raised hands for a good time at the summits. Oh, fantastic, almost universal. Thank you folks. My name is Paul Ferguson. I'm the practice manager in operations integration, which is part of AWS Professional Services. I'm here today with my colleague, Itai David Njanji, who is in the front row, to talk to you about using AIOps to reduce incident volumes. Right, we will proceed. Thank you, folks. Right, so we're going to do a quick poll. If you didn't have your headsets on, I'll get you to shout, but since you have got your headsets on, I'll get you to raise your hands. How many of you are using AWS CloudWatch? CloudWatch, using AWS, you must be using CloudWatch. All right, those of you who aren't, see me afterwards for a brief chat. Everybody should be using CloudWatch. It's a wonderful service. You should be using it to monitor all of your AWS resources. I would advocate that as a key takeaway. If you're not, do so. How many of you using third-party monitoring tools? There's loads of them. So Sumo Logic, App Dynamics, New Relic, all of those things. Datadog, lots of hands for third-party. So you're not just using CloudWatch. You're using third-party tools. You're probably monitoring things that aren't AWS. We accept you have on-premise estate. You have VMware. You may have other cloud providers. Ooh. And just finally, how many of you are using an ITSM tool? Do you have an ITSM tool? So ServiceNow, BMC Remedy, Jira Service Desk. Less hands. I assume that's suggestive of people either don't know or you're a Groovy startup, you don't need it, some other reason. But those are the things that we are going to kind of talk to you about today and how you can improve and iterate on an environment that has CloudWatch, third-party monitoring tools, and ITSM by using the magic of AIOps. Okay? Thank you for your participation in this poll. Cool. Right, this is what we're talking about. I will talk to you about the first few items on here, economic challenges of IT. So I'm assuming you're here because you're interested in operations. You have a stake in it somehow. It's non-trivial in the cloud. Comes with challenges. We'll describe those. We'll talk to you about ITIL. Everybody's a fan of ITIL. I know it's a wonderfully divisive thing to say amongst the cloud audience, but remains foundational and important. So don't just recoil from the fact that we've used ITIL in the agenda. We'll talk to you about operating models, how you approach managing your cloud environment and the context of AIOps, and we'll talk about some of the domains that we reference. Then I will hand seamlessly over in a fantastic segue to Itai, who will talk to you about moving from ITOps, which sounds, cool, but is not as cool as AIOps. And he'll take you through applications and how they're made, how they can be monitored, how you can integrate your AWS and ITSM tooling, and then we'll talk about the groovy stuff, building an architecture around AIOps, or bringing your own architecture, so third-party solutions, market-based solutions, and obviously we will tie it all together in a beautiful fashion with a bow at the end. That's what we're here for, folks. Cool. Right, you may have experienced this phenomenon. You live in a world of data. I'm sure people have talked to you about volumes of data. If you work in front of a screen, you're constantly bombarded. And if you work in operations, that is doubly true and becomes a problem. So all of this wonderful stuff, all of the infrastructure that you either have in your data centers, heaven forbid, or that you have in the cloud, hopefully, in the form of databases and servers and storage and networking, all of your load balancers and RDS instances and all of your S3 buckets, and everything is generating data. All of it comes out in streams of alerts and alarms and events. And on top of all of this wonderful infrastructure, you no doubt have a vast collection of the things that your business runs on. So applications, you've probably got gaming and devices, IoT sensors, hopefully, in fridges and cars and who knows what. All of it generating a vast quantity of data, which manifests itself in your world, probably as logs. And no doubt some of you in this room or in your wider organization are burdened under a massive pile of logs which are of marginal value or of indeterminate value because you can't access that, you can't process it, there is too much. So that is a problem statement around logs and logging. And that leads us into the economic challenge around AIOps. You're drowning in tickets and noise. The data creates logs. A lot of that creates tickets. Some of that creates phone calls. It creates noise. It creates inefficiency. You need greater agility. Your changes need to be rolled out more quickly. No doubt you've been to other sessions today and at other junctures where you've been told to improve efficiency. Operations is a key part of that, and rolling out your changes to your software is contingent on you knowing what's happening with it. It takes too long to detect and fix things. That's really the nuts of what we're trying to get to. It takes too long to resolve issues in your estate. Your customer expectations are higher than they once were. Your expectations of your infrastructure is higher. The business wants things to be resolved promptly, if not immediately. If not, don't fix things, just make it all work all the time. Okay? If anyone hasn't already been exhorted to have more automation, then you're probably in the wrong place. Remove the humans from your estates, automate things, release your operations engineers to do more interesting things with their time, get them to dedicate more of their time to the applications. Don't be sitting around sifting through logs, dealing with manual tasks. You've heard this before, I'm sure. I'm preaching to the choir, but automate stuff, folks. Cool. ITIL, there it is. Any reactions? Everybody's fine with the word ITIL? That's fine. Okay, good. Glad no one's had too much of a response. This really relates to our relationship with ITSM, so IT service management tools, and where they sit in a cloud operating model. I'm just going to throw up 3 of the modes of operation that we see in our customers and to an extent in ourselves. Traditional operations. I'm guessing some of you are still in a mode where you see traditional operations either in your own organizations or in your customers. It's an on-premise world. You're operating things in a data center. There are vendors involved. You're outsourcing things. And the way we describe an operating model is essentially in a kind of cruciform fashion. The platform layer supported by a group, a team, or multiple teams. The application layer supported by a separate group or the same group, depending on your model. And within that, we see an engineering or design function, which you'll see on the left-hand side, and an operations group. So in this example, this is a kind of traditional approach. You've got an engineering group. Within that, there's a subset of operations doing platform ops, application ops. Chances are there's some mechanism to talk between those groups, but it's faffy. It involves tickets. It involves ringing somebody up. It involves catching Charlie in the corridor. It involves ringing a vendor a lot of the time or contacting some third party. And your development team are up there on the left-hand side, developing software or purchasing it commercially off the shelf, and then putting it onto a platform that requires some sort of ITSM process to allow them to do it. So you see ITSM in the middle there, churning through changes, handing events and incidents around for the operations team, and managing that state. But that's not desperately efficient. And that's marked in red as being a transitional state. So think of that as a thing to move away from. Once you're optimizing, you're looking at a thing we describe as cloud ops, whereby that platform group is merged into one seamless platform engineering function that sits below a dev team that has responsibility for its own operations. So it's more efficient, it's more strategic, it's more sensible, it's more efficient in the sense that the ITSM function only has to broker between 2 groups and 2 layers. And eventually, you may reach this nirvana state, which, if you've been to one of these things before, you obviously be aware of the notion of DevOps, of combining your development and operations into one seamless and beautiful organization, a product model. This won't work for all of your workloads. Don't suppose that this is a end state you should all aspire to for every one of your workloads. But for any of your differentiating workloads, things that run your business, you should think about this. And that gives you a much greater level of autonomy for the developers, who live in this space where they are just consuming a thin layer of platform from a group at the bottom. And their ITSM load is much lower. They're not faffing about, passing tickets to different groups. They're essentially logging things for their own purposes. So efficiency is greater, and that is a nice strategic operating model. Now this leads us in a seamless fashion onto the thing that we like to call an AIOps scale-up model, iterating on DevOps and turning that into a thing which the keen-eyed amongst you will have noticed contains machine learning in the middle. So rather than just having some ITSM tooling, some ServiceNow instance, you're now introducing an element of machine learning. So you're no longer reliant on humans. You're not reliant on learning through behavior. You're learning through machines. And you can see that we've marked this as being a scale-up approach. And this will let you release your operations teams to focus on more efficient things and, by a flywheel effect, release more software and do more of the useful things that differentiate your business. Oh, excuse me. Ta-da. Oh, 1 second. Just to place this in context, this is a view of the operations world that we have as professional services. We've divided up our view into 4 separate pillars, of which the left-hand side is the bit that we're concerned with now. Our core operations functions, of which I've alluded to, platform architecture and governance as part of the operating model piece, provisioning and configuration management. You'll be aware of how to consider those amongst your operating model. You need to think about availability and continuity, but the one in purple that we're really here to talk about today is event and incident management. So that highlights the importance of that in our way of thinking about operations, and leads me on to my esteemed colleague, Itai Njanji, who will talk to you about the move from ITOps into AIOps. Itai, clicker is yours.
Thank you, Paul, for that introduction. Before I start, raise of hands if you can hear me. Okay, perfect. So Paul has led us through or guided us to this point, putting the foundation of where we are in terms of ITOps, challenges that we're experiencing, whether it's drowning in tickets or it's wanting more agility and more automation. And so I'm going to walk you through that whole process of taking ITOps to AIOps. So let's start with what is AIOps, right? A lot of us have some sense of what AIOps is. I do prefer simpler definitions of this, and then give you more examples of what to think of when you start to think about AIOps. It's essentially techniques that uses machine intelligence to solve IT operation issues. And some of those techniques, we'll explore them today. So for example, entropy, which is essentially reducing the noise that you might be hearing with your IT operations. So hundreds of tickets, how can we reduce the noise so that we action only the events that we care for? We have algorithms such as linguistic algorithms that look at the data in your logs, whether it's words such as severe, alert, bug, and bring out the patterns and classification of those words. We have time proximity, which looks at alerts that are happening maybe in your infrastructure and application layer, happening in a particular time, classifying those and making sure you take action on the right alerts. And of course, we have neurofeedback as well. And so that is essentially a quick overview of what AIOps is. To walk you through moving from ITOps to AIOps, I'm going to start off by talking about modern applications. The first thing that we've observed is that modern applications involve a lot of automation. Whether it's automation using new technologies such as serverless or Lambda or RDS, or using newer technical ways of developing the apps, whether it's infrastructure as code, compliance as code, automating your security. All this leads to what we're defining as the DNA of modern applications. So what does that mean? Modern applications generate a lot of data. There is no way around this. They will generate a lot of data and a lot of noise sometimes because you're monitoring everything, you're automating everything as well. The second aspect is they're connected. Modern applications do not live in silos. Whether you're using microservices with APIs, those connections in terms of modern application, they evolve very quickly. Whether you're automating your CI/CD pipeline, they're evolving quickly, which means you're also automating a lot of those pipelines, generating a lot of data. These three factors leads to an ingredient which is essentially the birth of more incidents and more tickets. So then how do we then move from this day where we're building modern applications to reduce ticket volumes? So I'm going to walk you through that process today. The first thing we notice when we talk to customers is how they use ITSM tools to handle their ticketing issues. We call this architecture that you see on the board the simple ITSM integration, AWS ITSM integration. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at it, we're going to break it, and then front load it with AI and AIOps intelligence so that we reduce your incident ticketing. So let's start here. On one end, you have your ITSM tools, whether it's ServiceNow, Jira Service Desk, Sharewell, and so forth, or BMC, Remedy. On the other hand, you have AWS and other monitoring tools as well. What we usually see is the usage of AWS Config, which is our native discovery service in the cloud that allows you to update your CMDB. It also allows you to write config rules for your asset management. Of course, we have AWS CloudWatch. A lot of you raised your hands when Paul was asking about CloudWatch. CloudWatch monitors everything, anywhere, anytime on AWS. Essentially, it is the key ingredient to your monitoring. What these services do in a simple AWS ITSM integration is they pipe into an SNS topic, which your ITSM 2 is subscribing to. And within your ITSM 2, you have handlers that you write, whether they're JavaScript handlers or what sort of handlers you write to update your tickets or to page somebody. I want to call your attention to the fact that this is a simple AWS ITSM integration. It's what you usually find in a sustained cloud operating model or just a strategic cloud operating model, and even sometimes in a DevOps operating model. But what it lacks is intelligence. It's almost a brute force way of let's log everything, and then let's pipe it into ITSM2, and let's wait for operations to figure this out. Now, the problem becomes even bigger if you have multiple monitoring tools, your business grows, your application grows. You probably end up being here. More monitoring tools, whether they're AWS tools or third-party tools, and you have ITSM data overload. What we're going to walk you through today is how to prevent ITSM data overload using machine learning techniques and how to build those architecture. Now, if we add machine learning just on an overview perspective, we start to observe certain things like alert clustering, so things like time proximity, linguistics proximity. We start to look at things like anomaly detection as well, right? Things that you didn't anticipate, but you're having neurofeedback that allows you to have detection of new incidents or new insights. And so this is where AIOps start to improve your IT processes or start to improve the issues that you're facing as IT operators. There are two buckets of ways that we're observing customers build AIOps, and we'll go through each one of those. Number one is build your own AIOps architecture using AWS services. I'll walk you through step by step of how to do that. I'll also highlight the particular AWS services that you need to go deep dive on. I'll even describe some of those AWS services as well. On the other hand, if you're an executive, you need to balance between your data science team and keeping the lights on. Traditionally, IT operators don't have data science experience. So how do you then build AIOps without data science experience? And we're calling that the bring your own AIOps. So build your own AIOps and bring your own AIOps. So we'll start with the build your own AIOps. There are 5 stages to building your own AIOps on AWS. I'll walk through them and then we'll deep dive on each stage. Number 1, you have to build for observability, which means log everything. No more SNS strategy, log as much as you can. We'll talk a little bit about this. The second stage is collect the data in a tool of your choice or a service of your choice. The third stage is now build your AIOps algorithms using native AWS machine learning services, something that we haven't quite started using from an IT operations point of view. So you'll hear, I'll talk a little bit more about SageMaker. SageMaker is not about robot only, or it can also help us with traditional IT problems. The fourth stage is utilizing SNS topics and Lambda functions for remediation and alerting. And then we'll close it up with an integration to an ITSM2. Essentially what we're doing, we're front-loading the intelligence in AWS and only piping alerts when the intelligence has already operated. That's how we view different IT operations, which is usually reactive, to AIOps, which is more proactive using machine learning. In terms of collection of data, you probably are aware of Amazon S3. You can import your own data as well from on-premise to AWS. You can store pretty much everything on S3 for pretty much nothing. But also consider other AWS services such as Kinesis for IoT data, so that you have a stronger connection and collection capability. I would also want to point out querying with EMR and Elasticsearch as well, and Redshift. So that's the second stage, right? You're monitoring everything using AWS CloudWatch. You've now collected everything using S3, and now you want to build your AIOps using SageMaker. So let's talk a little bit about SageMaker. I'm pretty sure today you've probably had a lot of talks about SageMaker, but not necessarily in the context of solving IT problems. So we're going to deep dive into that today. So what is SageMaker? SageMaker is a fully managed service from AWS. I think that is key because the barrier to entrance into machine learning, particularly for IT operators that are not coming from a data science background, is very low. It's fully managed. You don't have to worry about the infrastructure. You just go and build the algorithms. SageMaker allows you to build algorithms such as noise reduction, entropy, neurofeedback algorithms. It also allows you to build an algorithm that does classifications, reinforcement. Essentially, pretty much all the best frameworks for building machine learning and AI algorithms are supported on SageMaker, for example, TensorFlow. Now, I'm not going to go in details on each of those algorithms. For example, how do you really do entropy, or how do you do proximity, linguistic proximity, or time proximity, or topological proximity. But all those can be built on SageMaker easily, quickly, without you having to worry about the barrier to entrance. So about 5 years ago, the barrier to entrance into data science was harder because you have to run a lot of algorithms to teach AI, right? To train them and optimize, and you don't need to do that in terms of SageMaker. So this is the key service to remember when you have to build your AIOps. Now things become easier once you put SageMaker into your AIOps. Now it's time to alert your IT operators, maybe color those alerts with Lambda. So something gets into your SNS topic, it triggers a Lambda function that colors that. And then basically you're in the remediation process right now. In some points, nothing has to occur for an IT operator at this stage because you have neurofeedback that's probably saying to you, well, we've seen this alert before because of your AIOps. No action for you, we're just alerting you to tell you that we've seen this. Or there might be action associated to that. So this is where Lambda and SNS topic come into play. Now we've front-loaded IT operations with a lot of intelligence. It's time to integrate with your ITSM tooling. There's one line. Just integrate with your ITSM tooling. HTTPS subscribes to whether it's ServiceNow or BMC or Jira, subscribe to your SNS topic. That's it. Front load your IT operations with machine learning techniques or machine learning intelligence. So let's take a moment to just summarize that, because that's the meat of the presentation. Number one, make sure you're set up for observability. Log everything. Do not try to outsmart your logging. Use Amazon CloudWatch, which basically monitors everything anywhere in AWS. Collect your logs, data storage. Consider S3. It's practically cheap. You can also import data from your on-premise. And also consider IoT services that allow you to stream them like Kinesis. Build AIOps using SageMaker, right? Entropy, noise reduction, clustering, neurofeedback. All these algorithms are supported on SageMaker. You don't have to worry about infrastructure management, right? Number four is alerting and remediation using SNS topics and coloring your alerts with Lambda. And then you finish off with ITSM integration. Now, if we bring this together, we can probably talk a lot about the AI algorithms underneath, but this is where we are going. All your monitoring on one end, you have an ingestion mechanism, whether you're using Kinesis or you're just piping things into S3. And then you build your patterns and tools using SageMaker. And one of the results for that is ticket reductions. But of course, you can start to see things like decisive response time, mean time to resolution goes down. But what's more interesting is the discovery of new patterns that you probably didn't quite realize without AIOps. So that's one aspect. Build your own AIOps using AWS services. The reality of the matter is you might have to balance the people challenge with keeping the lights on. You're not going to get an IT operator building AIOps algorithms overnight. They have to learn to do that. In most cases, they have to partner with your data science team. So how do we get there? Bring your own AIOps. AWS Market Solutions provide your bring your own architecture to your IT operations with a lot of algorithms. Just a key factors to point out here. Number one is there 10 key solutions that have been tried, proven. So you can easily purchase these solutions or software from from AWS Marketplace running on AWS. So think about Dynatrace, think about Moogsoft, think about all these AWS partners that are building AIOps on AWS. Again, you have a variety of algorithms that you can utilize in terms of bring your own AIOps. So you don't necessarily need to go and build an entropy algorithm. Maybe just start with incident event management and figure out how you can improve that using AWS Marketplace Solutions. So let's summarize a little bit. There's an old way and there's a new way. It's a revolution. We're in it. Data science is affecting the way we think, whether it's in various areas of engineering to even IT operations. I'm not going to read through the whole slide, but I'm going to call out some important distinctions between what we're currently doing today and how we look into the future. Start at the bottom, cost of ownership, right? Traditionally, we used to hire more IT engineers based on our incidents, so a direct proportion. That doesn't have to happen when you use AIOps. I talked a lot about correlation technique when I was alluding to the fact that you don't have to come up with some sort of hard mechanism with an SNS strategy. Let machine learning bring out the patterns for you. So that's what you see there with correlation technique. Accuracy, what we have observed is old ways is around 20%. With AIOps, it's about 80% and upwards. So you can, as an executive, you have more confidence using AIOps to solve your IT problems. Well, you get a slide. You can read through this. The key point here is if you are doing some of these things on the old way, the possibility is that you can use AIOps to improve your IT operations. I know I'm standing between you and beer, so I'm trying to summarize this, and then we can all enjoy beer. Paul and myself will be here after the talk to answer any of your AI questions as well. So let's talk about what we've said today. Number one, understand the IT challenges that we're going through, whether it's drowning in tickets. Paul alluded to that. Understand the role of ITSM tools in a cloud operating model. It's essentially where you usually trigger your tickets. And then understand what AIOps cloud operating model looks like. For us, we demonstrated what a simple AWS ITSM integration pattern looks like. We think it's a brute force way to log your tickets, and it's insufficient if you want to scale. So we broke it apart and we front-loaded it with intelligence of AIOps by building your own architecture using SageMaker, CloudWatch S3, SNS, Lambda, and finally just integrating that with ITSM2. We also talked about balancing the need for building your own architecture and the people challenges of bringing data science to IT operations. And the key way to do that is utilizing AWS Marketplace softwares such as Dynatrace or Moogsoft. And then we finished with what the old way looks like, and we started to look at the future, what the future could potentially look like. After all this talk, we only have 3 things for you to go do. Number one, stay around, talk to solutions architecture team or AWS professional teams about our solutions in terms of AIOps. There's a lot of blogs on machine learning algorithms that you can usually just pull, plug into your IT operations. A good place to learn about that is SageMaker, ML blogs. And finally, as we think of how to solve IT operations, let us consider using machine learning and AI abilities to start modernizing our IT operations. With that, I want to say thank you to Paul and all of you. We do have a lot of beer waiting for us, so I won't delay you. Paul and myself will be here to answer any questions. And do not forget to complete an evaluation. Thank you.